light. It illuminated their darkness. But you see, that special provision of God was now over. When the children of Israel crossed over in the promised land, the pillar of fire went away. All that was left now was the remembrance of it once a year in these candelabras. And yet the world is still filled with darkness. The human heart was still filled with darkness. It's into the midst of that darkness that Jesus steps in and says, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. Now, folks, I know what the great minds of our day are saying. They're saying that our world is becoming more and more enlightened. That darkness is being dispelled. But the reality is, our world is darker than ever. And that darkness can so easily invade our lives, even as Christians. You know, things are going along just fine. And all of a sudden, these dark clouds just come rolling in. Maybe it's a health issue. Maybe it's work-related. Maybe it's something to do with your kids. Maybe it's in your marriage. Maybe it's financial. Maybe it's with relationships. All of a sudden, sunny day, clouds over, it gets darker and darker and darker. If you're living out the human existence, this is going to happen to you. There's going to come a time where we are going to be enveloped by darkness. You see, Jesus understood that. He knows that's going to be our experience while we live in this world. And so he says to us today, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of light. You know, there's nothing more wonderful than having Jesus step into the midst of our darkness and throw on the light. There's nothing more wonderful than having the Shekinah presence of Jesus to cover us, to protect us, to illuminate us in the darkness. But here's what we have to do. We have to look for this light. Then we have to follow it. Notice Jesus says, I'm the light of the world. He who, what's that word? Follows me. We've got to look for light. We've got to follow it out. If we follow the Lord, his light comes in and he leads us out of the darkness. Now, I know that there are many of you here this morning, and there's some dark things happening in your life. And with that darkness comes confusion, disorientation, fear, doubt. But Jesus says to you this morning, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you'll not walk in darkness. I'll give you the light of light. As you look around and see all the Christmas lights this season around you, you remember, Jesus is the light of the world. Let's look at another one of these great I am statements. It's back a couple chapters in John chapter 6. Flip back there if you would. John 6:48, Jesus says this. He says, I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which comes down from heaven, that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread which I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. Now, the context here is very important. Jesus has just performed the miraculous feeding of the 5,000. When that was over, he sent the disciples by boat across the Sea of Galilee. He went up to the mountains to pray. And you remember what happened to the disciples in the boat. The winds came up, the waves came up. It got radical out there. They weren't making any progress. Jesus comes walking to them on the water, calms the seas, gets them to the other side. When they finally get to the other side, the multitudes that they fed the day before, they're already there. They're eagerly awaiting the breakfast buffet. The dinner buffet was great. What can Jesus do with breakfast? Jesus says, you seek me, not because of the signs, but because you ate the bread and were filled. Do not labor for bread which perishes, but for the food which endures unto everlasting life. This is the bread you want. And of course the multitude said, yes, that's the bread we want. Bread from heaven, that's going to be tasty bread. And then Jesus says in John 6:35, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger. He who believes in me shall never thirst. Now, if we're honest with ourselves, we have to admit that we are not much different than the multitudes that are represented here. They were following Jesus because of what Jesus could do for them. Jesus had healed them, he had taught them, he had fed them. They even had the hope that he might be the one that would deliver them from the oppressions of the Romans. They were interested in Jesus because they had needs, he had solutions. We're interested in Jesus for those same reasons. We have needs. And we hope that he will come through with his solutions. What Jesus is trying to teach us here is there's something more important than what he can do, and that is who he is. In other words, you don't just want what Jesus can do for you. You want Jesus. Because if you've got Jesus, then all he can do comes along with it. What Jesus can do for a person only lasts so long. I mean, isn't that true? What Jesus can do for a person only lasts so long. Jesus can heal a person, but guess what? They're going to die. Jesus can miraculously come through with rent money or mortgage money, but guess what? 30 days later, yeah. Think about the multitudes. Jesus had just fed them an incredible meal. Miraculously. They ate until they couldn't eat anymore. 12 hours later, and what? They're hungry. What Jesus can do only lasts so long. What we want is not just what Jesus can do. We want Jesus. We want to eat of him. We want to eat of his flesh, because if we do, we will be satisfied. And the amazing thing is that we can actually do that. We can get beyond the action and get to the person. We can actually have fellowship with him. We can actually have a living, vital relationship with Jesus. See, that's his heart for us. And maybe you came here this morning because you have a need that you desperately want Jesus to meet for you. I understand that. But what he offers you is so much better. He offers you himself. He says, I am the bread of life. You come after me. You'll be satisfied. We'll never hunger or thirst again. Now next, I want us to think about Jesus being the gate to the sheepfold, the good shepherd. Listen to how Jesus put this. This is in John chapter 10, verse 7. Then Jesus said to them again, most assuredly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved. He will go in and out and find pasture. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. But I am come that they might have life, and that more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. So first Jesus says, I am the gate, or I am the door to the sheepfold. This was an expression that every Jewish person was familiar with. Most of them had sheep. If not, they knew someone who kept sheep, and they knew how the shepherds did it. When a shepherd would lead the sheep out to pasture, they would build a temporary pen to keep them. They'd usually back the pen up to a hillside or a cliff, and then they would build out the sides and the front with rocks and sticks, and usually with these plants that look kind of like tumbleweed. But the gate, the door, for every sheep pen was exactly the same. The door was the shepherd. The shepherd would lay across the front, the opening of the door, thus guaranteeing that the only way in and the only way out was through them. Now the sheepfold here, obviously, it's a picture of heaven. And what Jesus is saying is he's the only way in. If you're going to go in or out, you have to go through him. Now, folks, that's a radical statement. It's radical. But it gets even better because he says that everyone else who tried to climb over or go around him is a thief and a robber. And Jesus says the thief comes only to steal, to kill, and what's the last word? destroy. Jesus says that he's the good shepherd, and he has come that they might have what? Life, and that more abundantly. What Jesus is saying is that every other religious system is not close almost. They're not good ideas that just ended up a little short, but they're frauds designed to steal people's souls. Not a lot of tolerance in that. Not much political correctness. If you work for A&E, out! But there's a lot of truth. You see, when you have Jesus, you have access to God. When you have Jesus, you've got the gateway to life, and that more abundantly. In the same section, Jesus builds on this theme and says, I am the good shepherd who lays down his life for his sheep. Now again, this is a picture that every Jewish person would have quickly identified with. Oh, the good shepherd loves his sheep, cares for his sheep, willing to risk his or her life for the sheep to keep them from predators. The good shepherd is the one who would leave the 99 and go after the one. The good shepherd knows his sheep by name. He leads them out. He listens to them. He protects them. What that means is that you are known by Jesus. You're not just a number. You're not just a statistic. You're not just some member of a church somewhere. No, Jesus knows you by name. He listens to your prayers. He's going after you when you stray. He's going to lead you in and guide you to still waters, to green pastures. He knows exactly what you're going through. He knows exactly how to care for you. He is your good shepherd. Now, turn over to John chapter 14. Let me show you the next one. This is an I am statement I know that all of you are familiar with. Jesus said in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, this is one of those statements that coming from anyone else would be either diabolical or comical. It's so outrageous. You couldn't take it any other way. But coming from Jesus, it's neither. It's reality. Jesus is the way. He is the truth. He is the life. First, Jesus says he's the way. He's the way to God. He's the way to peace. He's the way to healing. He's the way in regards to relationship. He's the way in your marriage. He's the way in your business. Jesus is the way. And then he's truth. Not just truth for his day 2,000 years ago, which I heard a news commentator say on the news the other night, but the truth for today and for all eternity. Jesus will tell you the truth about God. He'll tell you the truth about yourself. He'll tell you the truth about heaven. He'll tell you the truth about hell. He'll tell you the truth about sin. He'll tell you the truth about the devil. He'll tell you the truth about relationships. It goes on and on. And when you learn those truths and you practice those truths, the truth will set you free. Folks, that there is nothing more powerful than the truth. And Jesus is truth. And Jesus is life. Have you ever really thought about this thing called life? Have you thought about it? It's the most amazing thing. And you really realize that when life is suddenly gone. Talked to a guy about that in our church here this morning. But try to explain it. Try to describe it to someone. Life, it's impossible. But I'll tell you where it comes from. It comes from the one who is life, Jesus Christ. He's not only the author of life, he is the source of life. Folks, is there a commodity that is more wonderful or more valuable than life? I don't know of one. So if you could be connected to anyone, wouldn't you want to be connected to the one who's the source of this amazing commodity? I would. Jesus is life. And as he said in regards to the gate, no one comes to the Father but by him. He's the only one that can get us to the Father. How? He did it through his life, his death, and his resurrection from the dead. Now, let me show you one more this morning. Turn over to John chapter 15, verse 1. You're going to love this one. He says, I am the true vine. My Father is the wine dresser. Look down at verse 4. Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. For without me, you can do what? Nothing. Now, what Jesus is telling us here is that he is the source of spirituality. If you want God life to flow in you, it has to come from him. And this God life flows in us as we abide in him, as a branch abides in the vine. You know what a branch's job is in relationship to the plant? It just has to stay plugged in. It just has to stay in that place where the life of the plant can flow through it, through the leaves, to the buds, and out to the fruit. It's as simple as that. You know, there are two things you'll never see a branch doing. The first one is to try to keep connected to the plant. You never see a branch going, oh, I want to just hang on to this thing. No, it just abides. Simple as that. The second thing you never see a branch doing is putting forth a bunch of effort to produce fruit. You ever got a nice orange tree out here? You ever walk by the orange tree and hear it going, to produce fruit? No, it doesn't have to. All that has to happen is the life of the plant just has to flow through the branch out to the fruit. It just has to stay plugged in. And that's what Jesus wants from us. If we'll just stay plugged into him and through fellowship and church and Bible study, worship, prayer, that's so important in making that happen. But if we stay plugged into him, the life of God will flow in us, and the fruit of God will just naturally flow from us. When we're filled with the life of God, the most wonderful things can happen. Jesus says, I am the true vine. I am the source of real spirituality. Okay, one last one. Listen to the words of Jesus from John chapter 11. You got to go back a few chapters. John 11:25. John 11:25. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? You know the context here. Jesus and the disciples have just retreated from Jerusalem beyond the Jordan because religious guys were trying to kill him. While he was there, he receives news that Lazarus, Martha and Mary's brother, was sick and dying. He waits 2 days before he moves towards them, and it's a 2-day journey to get there. By the time that Jesus arrived, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. Now, as you can imagine, Martha and Mary were confused. They were upset. They knew that if Jesus would have come sooner, that Lazarus wouldn't have died. But he didn't come. And now he was 4 days dead. That's when Jesus pulls Martha aside and says, Martha, I'm the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, yet shall he live. And whoever lives and believes in me, he shall never die. Do you believe this? And what Jesus is saying here is, Martha, do you believe that I can bring life out of the death that has come into your life? Do you believe I can do something greater than a healing? Do you believe I can raise your brother Lazarus from the dead? Now, both Martha and Mary, they waffle on this, just as you and I would have waffled on this. And so Jesus has them roll away the stone. He steps up. He says, Lazarus, come forth. And you know what happened? Lazarus comes staggering out, still bound up, but alive. You see, Jesus is the resurrection and the life. Yes, he'll raise us up on the last day. Yes, those who believe in him, even though they die, yet they shall live. But in the here and now, Jesus can bring life to what we have killed. He can unravel the messes that we create. He can bring order out of the chaos that we have caused. You know, sometimes our messes need more than a miracle. They need a resurrection. And maybe you are here today and you realize this is true for you. Maybe your marriage today is dead. You need a resurrection. Maybe there's a relationship with your children, or maybe one of your children that's dead. You need a resurrection. Maybe it's financial. You don't need a miracle there. You need a resurrection. Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. Oh, what a wonderful truth. Folks, that's who Jesus is. He's the bread from heaven that satisfies the soul. He's the light of the world that illuminates our darkness. He's the doorway to heaven, the one that gets us to the Father. He's the good shepherd who lays down his life for his sheep. He is the way, the truth, the life. He's the true vine, the source of all spirituality. He is the resurrection and the life. He is the great I am. Let me personalize that for you here today. If Jesus is the great I am, then whatever you need here today, whatever you need, he is. Is your soul hungry? Is there a hunger in your spirit that this world has not been able to fulfill? He's the bread of life. Eat of him. You'll never hunger or thirst again. Is there great darkness in your life today? Oh, it can so easily creep into our lives. He is the light of the world. Let him lead you out of that darkness today. Let his light invade that darkness today. Is it settled in your heart that he is the door? That he's the only way to the Father? That's something you have to believe if you want to access all that Jesus is. Is Jesus your good shepherd? He knows you by name. He hears you. He will protect you. He loves and cares for his sheep. But is he your good shepherd today? Is he your way, your truth, your life? His way will set you on the straight and narrow. His truth will set you free. His life will bring abundance and joy. Are you allowing Jesus to be your true vine, your only source of spirituality today? Are you abiding in him? Are you plugged into him so that the life of God is flowing in you? Is he your resurrection and your life? Oh, if he is, you'll never die. If he is able to go beyond the miraculous and bring resurrection right in your life. See, that's what Jesus wants to be to you today. He wants to be your bread. He wants to be your light. He wants to be your doorway to heaven. He wants to be your good shepherd. He wants to be your way, your truth, your life. He wants to be your true vine. He wants to be your resurrection life. He wants to be your great I am. See, that's why we need Jesus in Christmas more than ever. That's what the world needs. That's the new sign in Times Square. But so do we. So, church, abide in him. Abide in him. Let him be to you this Christmas season all that he wants to be. Father, thank you. Thank you for Christmas. Lord, that time of year that we celebrate God made flesh dwelling among us. And Lord, I'm so thankful for who you are. And Lord, I know our world misses this. They don't get it. But Lord, we get it. We get it. But Lord, before it can be real to the world, it's got to be real in us. Jesus, you have to be these things to us. And Lord, today I know you're the great I am. I know that you're all these things. But Lord, my prayer for each one here is that you would be these things to each one here personally. And Lord, I think about just that one, that you're the bread of life. And Lord, I know I get so stuck in this. I have so many needs, so many things I want you to do. Lord, not just for me, but even for those around me, my friends, my family. And Lord, you just reminded me this week, it's not what I can do, it's who I am. Eat of me. And Lord, that's what many of us may need to do right here this morning, just freshly to eat of you. Just to say, Jesus, it's not about what you can do, it's about who you are. Yes. And this is who you are. You're the way, the truth, and the life. You're the light that dispels my darkness. You're the vine that I can abide in. Your resurrection. You are the good shepherd. Wow. So, Lord, let that settle now on each heart. And, Lord, let us respond as we need to respond today. Father, I also pray over this prayer time. I know that there are so many needs in our church. And, Lord, it's not like we set those aside. No, we want to pray because we believe that you are the good shepherd. You hear our prayers, and you'll respond to us. So, Father, now as the altar is open and people come to pray, Lord, show us how to pray today. And God, blow our minds in the way that you answer these prayers. Thank you, good shepherd. Thank you that you want to hear from us now. In Jesus' name. Amen. Let's stand together this morning.